enormous historic state has been truly rewarding. The results have not only been inspirational, they are reflective of a better and more vibrant society that the people of Kaduna State have always hoped and yearned for. This is Kaduna. The popular gold market within Kaduna metropolis is by no means the biggest market in the state. However, it ranks as one of the busiest, attracting a daily influx of thousands of people. The market thrives simply because it meets the principle of demand and supply, catering for the needs of customers who mostly come from faraway places. Incidentally, the buying of gold and allied goods is not the only reason that people now troop to Kaduna in droves. The state has become a Mecca of sorts, particularly in the last 4 years, catering for the needs of a divergent group of visitors. Kaduna is currently positioned as a key player in quality service delivery, deploying its wealth in human resources as well as functional infrastructure to solve contemporary challenges, whether in commerce and industry or social services and hospitality. This state is accustomed to being the center of attention.
The Kaduna I grew up in the 60s and 70s, even up to the 80s, was a very inclusive city, a cosmopolitan city that welcomed everyone, where people of different ethnic groups and religions thrived.
Historically, Kaduna holds a place of pride in northern Nigeria, having been the region's seat of power prior to the country's independence from British colonial rule and in the immediate after. Kaduna's political influence, however, waned as time passed, and its leadership as a pace setter diminished in scope.
That's how we came up with the slogan, to make Kaduna great again, because Kaduna used to be great. I knew when it was. I knew when everyone wanted to retire to Kaduna. I knew when Kaduna was what Abuja is today, where everyone can call his home. And I do not believe that we cannot retrieve that greatness. The greatness of Kaduna is from its diversity. In this state alone, we have 54 out of Nigeria's 500 ethnic groups. One state out of 36 with 10% of all the different ethnic groups in Nigeria. We have 54 in this state. And it is a mini Nigeria. And I think if we can make Kaduna to function well, if we can make Kaduna to make rapid progress in peace and stability, it's a model for the rest of Nigeria. So, it is something we took seriously, and that was our campaign slogan.
May 29, 2015 was the turning point that kick-started the Kaduna Restoration to Greatness campaign. It signaled the commencement of work beyond the rhetoric that accompanied previous claims made by some politicians to recapture the state's glorious past. At inception, Malam Nasser El-Rufai set clear targets and spelled out long-term objectives. The mandate of the campaign was essentially restoring Kaduna to its place of pride among states in Nigeria. This requires that the state appropriately projects itself as a 21st century competitor in diverse strategic fields of human endeavor.
Every single sector in Kaduna State now has a detailed 3-year plan. every single sector from health to education to water. Now, this is something that is unprecedented in the history of not only Kaduna State, but Nigeria. There has never been a state government which has a detailed state strategy, but then also detailed sector strategies. Now, what this means is that each sector will be actioning its own sector plan. People of Kaduna State can pick up the plan and see exactly how the health sector intends to benefit the people of Kaduna State in the next 3 years, how the water sector, how education, how commerce, how industry, how all these things tie in to support the common people of Kaduna State.
However, the challenge of development was made worse by some pervasive lapses in the system and structure of public administration.
We found that even the rules of the service that put a cap on how far you can go if you don't have a university degree or equivalent were thrown out by political expediency. We found that for years the Civil Service Commission has not been hiring people. People have been going in as level 6 officers and below and growing into the system instead of, hiring young graduates into the service. So the service was aging. The average age was more than 40. There weren't enough young people at the lowest levels of the service to drive innovation and bring in new skills. Today, you don't have typists in the civil service because nobody uses typewriters anymore. But we had typists still on the payroll of the Kaduna State government. So we had to undertake these reforms to update and modernize the public service. In the process, of course, many people didn't fit.
There was the critical issue of an over-bloated and aged public service.
In our payroll were names of officers who were supposed to have retired a long time ago. They were over 60 years of age and some have served for over 35 years. So we started by removing them from the payroll. In other words, forcing them to process their retirement.
The state was also perpetually in dysfunctional debt owing to overdependence on its one major source of funds, the monthly federal handout.
You can come in as a government to do a lot of promises. If you don't have the revenue to fulfill those promises, then those promises will become empty and they will remain dead. So revenue is the blood of every government. When the new government came in 2015, we came in at the wrong time because then there was shrinking of revenues from the center because of the fall of oil prices internationally. Kaduna that was getting between 6 to 7 billion in a month started getting about 2 billion.
Another crucial challenge that inhibited development and stunted growth in the state was pervasive corruption in the system.
When we came in, it will surprise you to hear that even the accountant general could not tell us how many accounts the state government had.
Reforms were inevitable to change things quickly and for good. Governor El-Rufai and his team felt compelled to evolve a structure that hinted at the overall mandate of restoration by rejigging key sectors and optimizing available manpower.
Essentially, what we tried to do was to ensure that Kaduna State had a strategic vision and direction that was in line with the campaign manifesto and also what we found on the ground and which had been articulated in the Transition Committee report.
We took the APC manifesto, looked at the commitments made in the APC manifesto and adjusted them to fit the circumstances of Kaduna State. That is what we call the restoration program, because we believe that 16 years of PDP rule has decimated Kaduna, has destroyed many aspects of socio-political life in Kaduna, many aspects of economic life in Kaduna, and we needed to restore that. We needed to restore our industrial capacity, for instance. The 12 textile mills we had in Kaduna when I was growing up have all been shut down but 2. The peace and progress, the good neighborliness between peoples of different ethnic groups and religions in Kaduna had been destroyed. So we felt that Our job as an APC government, if elected, would be to restore Kaduna on the path that it was trading until these divisions all kicked in.
Clearly, the state civil service had a vital role in the blueprint of the restoration agenda of Governor Nasir El-Rufai.
The public service reforms we implemented were targeted at creating a first-class public service for Kaduna State, because no matter how good your policies are as an elected government, unless you have competent, committed, and capable public servants, they will not be implemented well. The civil service we inherited in Kaduna was the best among the northern states according to UK DFID, but we found that there were fundamental weaknesses in the civil service. Most of the civil servants, even directors, did not have enough education. Most joined the civil service after secondary school and walked through the system. There weren't enough graduates, there weren't enough quality administrative officers. There were conversions from teaching to administration and so on and so forth, to the point that, you know, apart from the cadre of permanent secretaries and a few directors, the rest of the service was fundamentally weak.
The state government started with repositioning the public service to strengthen the sector for efficient and effective service delivery. On October 10, 2016, the state governor launched the Public Service Revitalization and Renewal Program.
The Renewal and Revitalization Program is meant to introduce working tools to establish and authenticate the number of civil servants, genuine civil servants.
The reforms in the service saw the immediate pruning of ministries from 19 to 14 and the subsequent appointment of 15 commissioners to oversee the ministries as against 24 in the previous government. Thus, government's focus was tilted away from mere provision of political patronage and meal ticket to a new focus of service to the people. A biometric screening of civil servants was meticulously carried out across all local governments to ascertain the status of the workforce. The exercise resulted in the discovery of about 3,000 ghost workers.
We had people who had confessed to adding names into the payroll.
We believe that what we are doing now will bequeath a very strong, capable, motivated, and well-paid public service in Kaduna State. Even before the debate on the minimum wage, we had set up a committee to look at salary and allowances levels in Kaduna State with a view to reviewing it up, because we know that the pay is not what it should be much better.
Capacity building of workers was prioritized to ensure up-to-date knowledge and compliance with advances in information and communication technology. The reforms restored excellence and strengthened productivity in the performance of civil servants.
The government directed that by 25th of every month, civil servants should pay their salaries as priority before the project was begun.
No longer overwhelmed by the wage bill, the El-Rufai administration began to explore more opportunities to open up the state civil service. Young graduates with essential technical skills were employed and deployed appropriately to man key roles in their areas of competence. The leadership structure in key agencies of government was changed and modeled to impact on proficiency. Some of the affected agencies include Kaduna State Internal Revenue Service, KADRS, Kaduna State Pension Bureau, and Kaduna Geographic Information Service, KAGES. Others are the Kaduna State Public Procurement Authority, KADPPA, the Reform Kaduna State Water Corporation, KADSWAC, and Kaduna State Media Corporation, KSMC. The work environments of these and other public agencies were radically improved upon to give effect to set goals and objectives.
But the governance reforms are less visible, but they are indeed more important.
Equally admirable is the state government's continued attempts and success in opening new avenues for generating internal revenue to boost its economic base. The Tax Codification and Consolidation Edict was enacted to provide a unified law specifying all taxes and levies payable in the state. Multiple taxation was abolished by the new law with strong prohibition in cash collection of revenue.
In the past, we had a couple of agencies in the state. We had close to about 63 revenue-generating agencies. You can imagine when you have 63 agencies going about collecting monies from people as well as tax. But with this document, it centralizes everything into one place. This is this agency. They generate, we collect.
The law again prohibited, sanctioned, criminalized collection of cash by anybody that is involved in the tax net.
Government's effort in this direction has inspired landmark achievements that are unprecedented in the history of Kaduna State.
The first year we were in office, we collected revenues of less than 12 billion, 11 point something billion. The following year, the first year that we implemented the tax code, revenues nearly doubled to 23.6 billion. And currently we are hovering around 3 billion naira a month. We are on target to do about 35 to 36 billion naira this year from all indications. We haven't introduced new taxes. In fact, we have lowered some tax rates, but we have raised our internally generated revenue almost threefold.
While the state strives to boost its finances, it also looks to plug leakages and curb corrupt practices in governance. The introduction of the Treasury single account led to the closure of hundreds of different accounts managed by the state government in commercial banks.
Some of the accounts, the signatories were dead. Nobody knew about them. We discovered an account that existed during the military era that was just, so we didn't think that that is the intendment of Section 81 of the Constitution or thereabout, where all revenues must first go into a consolidated revenue fund of the state and to thereafter be charged and appropriated in accordance with the laws of the State Assembly.
We had to close over 400 bank accounts, and by the time we consolidated all the credit balances in those accounts, we had nearly 25 billion, which we didn't know when we took over.
The introduction of TSA, which is the first in the country, which even the federal government has copied, has really assisted the government to know all the revenues that are coming in, all the expenditures that will be done, and it gives you flexibility and simplicity of managing your liquidity. Because based on that, during the liquidity meeting, we can see, at a go what we have and what we are going to spend.
By this time, the El-Rufai administration had entrenched the practice of financial discipline, transparency and prudence in public spending. Within the first year, the state government saved 3.5 billion naira by renegotiating inherited liabilities. The reforms implemented in the financial sector reflected in both monetary and fiscal policies. Under Governor Nasro El-Rufai, planning and budgeting took center stage in governance. For the first time in a long time, 2/3 of every year's budget is dedicated to capital expenditure in Kaduna. This was a sharp contrast from the past.
What we're trying to do now is to ensure that government actually flips the allocation of resources to focus more on the 8.5 million people and not the 78,000, of which today I am among those 78,000. We don't want to spend money in the offices of commissioners or governor or PAMSECs or directors. What we want to do is to move these resources to places that they are required.
Ongoing projects in Kaduna State are carried out with a high sense of responsibility, both on the part of government and the contractors. The procurement procedure for contracts is strictly in accordance with the public procurement law initiated by Malam Nasru El-Rufai and passed by the State House of Assembly in 2016. Kaduna State has since become an example of how reforms, when properly implemented, can successfully turn a society around for good. The state is in a better position now to accelerate socio-economic growth and attract investors.
The effort of the governor has caught the attention of the international community, and United Nations agencies and so on are falling into Kaduna State one after the other because of the fact that they are sure of a success story in terms of partnership, because they have a government. They've seen clearly that there is a government that is committed.
Aware of the opportunities being created, Malam Nasru El-Rufai established the Kaduna State Investment Promotions Agency, KADIPA. The agency is Kaduna's window to the world and catalyst to wooing investors. Since 2015, KADIPA has successfully organized Economic and Investment Summit, KADINVEST, annually. As Kaduna opens to the world, investors take advantage of the serene and resourceful environment to do business. There has been a meteoric rise in the number of businesses in the state in the last 4 years, with big players delving in. Within a few years, the state attracted over $500 million in investment. Some of them include Olam, which invested millions of dollars to set up the biggest poultry feeds factory in West Africa. Following a memorandum of understanding, another farm, Indorama, is building an organic fertilizer plant in the state. Mahindra Company is also in Kaduna assembling tractors. Vicampro established a potato processing plant.
I went to see another incredible tomato investment, which uses greenhouses to produce seedlings for tomatoes and then plant them in open farms. They are doing 25 hectares pilot, and they intend to be processing the tomatoes into tomato paste for sale throughout Nigeria and even for export.
The opportunities in the restored Kaduna State are now as vast and infinite as the mind can fathom.
Every poor person in Kaduna should be confident that his child can go to school, up to secondary school, without thinking about, I am poor, I can't afford it. Every father must know for sure that I can go to a public hospital and I'll get treated. I don't have to take money out of my pocket. And if I have a motorcycle or a car, the roads are decent. They are well drained. There is security. I can go out at night. I can come back anytime I want. That's the minimum that I will accept as the Kaduna of the future. But I would want to see much more. I would like to see skyscrapers. I would like to see parks. I would like to see a metro system running through, connecting various parts of the metropolis. But my hope is that these 5 to 10 million people will be living in peace, respecting each other, not discriminating between indigenous or settler. I hope those two words would have disappeared from our vocabulary. And it will be one Kaduna that is inclusive, where people are united, where people just want to see progress, peace, and justice. That's the foundation we are trying to lay.
This may have started as one man's vision. Eventually, it has translated into the hope of millions of people. Kaduna's restoration to greatness is now on a stable trajectory.